My pronouns are she, her, hers. Leslie Bleichner. And I am currently coming to you from Central Iowa as the Assistant Chief Diversity Officer for Community Training, Education, and Belonging.
Okay, and I'm Trezlen Drake. I am the head of digital resources and a foreign and international law research librarian at Yale. I have been around AALL for a while. Recently, I was the chair of the JEDI Committee of ALSIS. And for any of you who are at the annual meeting, I helped coordinate the roundtable on interviewing skills. I'm also one of the co-founders of PEGA-SIS. So it's exciting to be back here with PEGA-SIS doing a show. So let me go ahead and get the conversation started. So Leslie, I know you don't like this question, but I'm asking it anyway. Can you define an optimal work environment?
And so I'm going to give you a non-answer. I think that, right? I don't think that there's a universal optimal work environment. I think it is really about everyone coming to the table with questions, curiosities, expectations, and everyone who's at that table navigating all of those things that I just named so that you can co-create that environment. Because what may work for me, I'm a sucker for structure. I want to be left alone. Like, don't email me after 5 p.m. May not jive with my supervisor who like loves peopling, wants to have coffee every other day. But I know that about him and he knows that about me, and we've conversed enough, and he's also new. So we're still working this out, but like, I use that as an example because he's A, very different from any other supervisor I've ever had. But B, he's also been the most receptive to like, what do you need? What do you need to feel successful? And this is what I need from you in order to feel successful. And it's that back and forth. And so it's really like in the details and in the communications and the questions and all of those things for you determine what your optimal work environment is. And as you get to know and navigate those things with your colleagues, supervisors, et cetera, you set boundaries around that. And either folks will respect those boundaries and maintain that environment, or they will violate said boundaries. And then you have a different set of questions to ask yourself. But I think it's possible, but it takes work. And I think it's really about like naming your expectations, being curious and like having questions, but also like knowing sort of what are your deal breakers. And supervisors are really responsible for creating a container for all of those things to exist at the same time. But if your supervisor is unwilling to do it, like I think when I think about like workers' rights and that sort of stuff, like they're not going to do it for you, then you need to be able to do that for yourself. And that's also like one of the first questions you have to start asking yourself of like, oh, is this an optimal work environment if I'm having to do all this work and the container doesn't feel like a right fit? So it's an answer, but it's also a non-answer.
Okay. You talked about boundaries. Can you talk about boundaries also with these new notions of quiet quitting and quiet firing?
Sure. Yeah, I actually really am annoyed by the term quiet quitting. Because to me, that's like, oh, I'm going to do the work that you're paying me for and nothing more, nothing less. Like, sounds like healthy boundaries to me. And so like my conspiracy theorist, I guess, it's like, oh, this is like the capitalists are like framing it as quiet quitting to like shame the worker for like reclaiming their space, and the like it's shame ridden. Because like what, yeah. And so I actually think that like quiet quitting is really about, again, setting healthy boundaries, like and naming those expectations and working so that folks can either prove you right or prove you wrong. Now, quiet firing, on the other hand, I think is absolutely like in name, very, very accurate. Like just, I'm going to slowly take away responsibilities, but like without like actively demoting you, like that is peak passive aggressive. And I think like that is like accurately captures what has been happening to a variety of folks for years in a very cogent way. Whereas I think quiet quitting is a bit of a misnomer.
Okay. How should one navigate conflict between colleagues?
So I think it's important to know your own conflict style first. I happen to be conflict avoidant. People would be like, really, Leslie, you have a lot of like knuck if you buck energy. And I'm like, no, actually, I would prefer not. Like, I would prefer just to like, do we have to talk about it? Because if we don't have to, let's not. But because I know that about myself, when I recognize like the waters are getting a bit bubbly, I think I can be like, okay, it's happening. We're gonna have to talk about it. And I think I can like take care of myself in that moment and like prepare for like what I need to do in order to like get myself in there. And so I think that's the first step. So if you're somebody that's like, ooh, conflict, let's do this. Like, I think you gotta know,
combat style.
right? Yes, yeah. It's like finish him. Like, I think that's important to know that, so that like you can govern yourself accordingly. Like you have to put on your own oxygen mask before you can help others, right? And so I think that's step one. I think step two is whether you know someone's conflict style or not, as soon as you recognize whether it's in chorus with you or opposite of you, you have some decisions to make. Because if you come in hot and they meet your energy, you're just like, oh, okay, like it really truly is about the conflict. But if you come in hot and you see someone shut down and like there's incongruity there, that's not a word. They're incongruous. Thank you.
Incongruity.
Yes, if they're not equal.
That word.
Yes. Then again, like you have a series of decisions to make, right? Like, are they cowering because like, am I coming in too hot? Do they always do this? Like, hopefully like your first encounter with someone isn't like conflict ridden, because then you're kind of SOL because you have to sort of just feel it out. But usually by the time you enter into conflict with someone, there's some context and some prior relationship there. And so when you enter into it, you kind of have to take the temperature, so to speak. And once you kind of like know, like, okay, we're both this way, or, oh, there's like a mismatch. I think that's really when you have to get to and name like very, very explicitly, this is what I want as a result of this conversation. Because that like takes away, I mean, and naming that thing may be an emotional thing. Like, I need to walk out of this conversation feeling better than when I walked in.
Okay.
And so it may be a matter that you don't even talk about the issue at hand. It may be just like, I need to be heard, or I need you to apologize, or, but like, you have to be really, really specific in those moments. Like, you can't accept the person that you're in conflict with to read your mind. Okay. And so I think that's also why I say, like, be very aware of your own conflict style, because I think just that general self-awareness will also make you reflect on, what do I actually want out of this conversation?
And would you say, oh, sorry.
No, you're okay. Go ahead.
Okay. Would you say that that same, like those same steps would apply in a situation where the conflict doesn't involve you, but you're standing up for someone who isn't standing up for themselves? So you've got someone in the workplace who's bullying someone and you see it and you're like, knock that off. Would you say that the same steps apply, or is that a situation where, you need to press your lips and go sit down?
Oh, I'm not a fan of sitting down. I mean, but listen, that may be somebody's style.
I'm not a fan of sitting down.
I'm not a fan of that. Like, put it on a shirt. No, I think that, so active bystanderism is a little different, right? Because we hope, at least in my work, I hope that like we have that whole idea of like, see something, say something, especially if it's something really egregious, right?
Yeah.
But it gets nuanced because there can be, if you're advocating for someone without their consent, that can be a little bit tricky. And then that's where we get into like savior complexes and other dynamics depending on the players at play.
Mm.
And so what I think, if you've been given, like if you notice something and you check in with the recipient of the bullying or whatever is happening, and you're like, hey, I noticed you didn't say anything, or I noticed like your body language changed. Like, are you good? Do you want me to say something? Especially if like that's your energy. Like that's me. I'm like, I don't have to, but like I'm also not going to ignore this thing. Like, you
Mm.
good, fam? Because I'll say something if you want me to. I'm happy to. And so I think it's about having like
I'll
that
throw
conversation.
down on your behalf if you want.
Absolutely. Yes. Um, but I think if it's so I think that's one thing. I think it becomes a little bit different if somebody is coming to you to confide in you about a conflict that they're in,
Mhm.
right? Because there's one thing where like you're an active observer, which kind of makes you a participant in like a non-active way.
Mhm.
But if somebody else is like, Trezlen, I got to come talk to you. I don't know how to handle the situation. Or if my boss does this thing one more time, like, I think again, it's the self check of like, am I even in a space to receive this information? Like, because if I'm stressed, or if I'm also pissed at the person that you're pissed at, like I may not be super objective and give you the advice that you actually need. And we may just like fuel each other's emotions.
Mhm.
Um, or it just like, as you get the details, you're like, ooh, this is messy. And this isn't actually about the conflict. Like this is about this person or that person.
Mhm.
I think again, like being really self-aware, so that you can be quiet and like really take in your environment so that you can be what you actually want, like your intentions and your impact will align. And so someone may come to you and be like, this is super raggedy, da, 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 da. And like the more you listen, you're like, oh, actually, you're the one being raggedy. Like, and
Yeah.
you have to, and so I always like to answer questions with questions. And so if you hear the raggediness, like my it's a tell. So don't, if you know me, like, and you hear this from me, I'm calling you out. It's like, okay, so what exactly do you want right now in this moment?
Mhm.
Because then that forces the person to stop and be like, oh, well, I just need to vent. Or
Okay.
yeah, like it's about asking that question and getting them to sort of the brass tacks.
Mhm.
Because otherwise you'll do more emotional labor than you probably want to.
Mhm.
Um, and it like, and again, it may not be your issue. And like one of the unintended consequences is going to be, office politics and that sort of things can get messy. And so, if you get observed, oh, you've been talking to, so and so, and it could get rumor milly. And so that's another way that you can enact boundaries and that sort of stuff. But I think with the person who's directly in front of you, being very, very clear about why they're in front of you and what they need from you
Mhm.
is going to help you navigate conflict in that way too.
Okay, so let me turn this cube one more time. How about navigating conflict with a supervisor?
So I would hope that how do I want to start? I would start with like really working on, if it's a first time conflict with the supervisor, because I think it's different if it's like first time versus sort of like this ongoing.
Mhm.
Like, so like the first time you like beef with your boss, it's going to tell you a lot about how they deem your relationship or
Mhm.
how they view it, right?
How so? Give
I
me.
think because you can disagree and like not hate each other, right? Or you
Mhm.
can disagree and then still reach the solution that you like are hoping to get, like whether it's a
Mhm.
compromise or someone, whatever. But I think how that process plays out
Mhm.
is an indication of how your supervisor views your relationship.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I think that first one, you can't really prepare for it because we're
Mhm.
inevitably going to be in conflict with one another. Because conflict really is just a mismatch. It's just you don't agree on something.
Mhm.
And so if the process is smooth and you're both are very clear on like what your objectives are and your relationship is in a good spot,
Mhm.
then like you'll deal with it, the mismatch, you'll get into alignment and you'll move on.
Okay.
If in that first encounter, that process is a little bit rocky, again, like you file that away and say, oh, I noticed that, I didn't feel heard, or I felt like I gave away too much ground that I'm comfortable for. Like you sort of like evaluate after the conversation is over, whether you had whether your conflict was resolved or whether it just sort of got pushed down the, like kicked the can down the road. You take, I think every encounter for conflict is an information gathering session. And so you gather that information and then you make some decisions. And I think what happens is you will know when you've met your threshold of conflict in an unproductive way. Like you'll hit your threshold. You're like, this isn't working. This guy's an asshole. Like, I mean, you'll, pardon my French. Sorry. I was
no,
like,
sorry. I was like,
on the internet. Sorry, Mom.
She's throwing the swear words out. Let's go.
Yeah, like you'll know, like you'll just like, okay, like it's fine to disagree every once in a while, but like if it's every encounter, like you'll hit your threshold. And then I think you have a series of decisions to make. I think
before you get there.
Yeah, but yes.
Okay, that's on my list, but I want to stop you before you get to the end
Sure.
of the end.
Sure.
At what point in all of these conflict situations do you start documenting and taking notes?
I'm a fan of over documentation than under. I think if things are, especially with the supervisor, and I think some of that is probably PTSD. I'll be honest. But I think
nobody has that. I don't know what you're talking about.
But I think that I'm also just like a copious note taker. Like I'm very curated in my office right now because I have papers like scattered. But I just, you never want to be in a situation, my opinion, and opinions are like belly buttons. We all have them and they're completely useless. I never want to be in a situation where I regret not having documentation of something, whether it's positive or negative. Like if I'm writing a thank you note or I just want to like give someone some appreciation, like it's helpful to me to be able to ground that. Like, hey, when we talked the other day about XYZ ABC, you were really great. And so thank you. So it goes both ways. But I think especially in supervisory relationships that you should take notes. And if you're a supervisor, I think being a good supervisor is encouraging your subordinates to also take notes. Like there shouldn't be any hierarchical like power relationships in that. Like if I'm gonna be recording, you should be recording. So like because there's always your story, my story, and the truth. So hopefully they're at least somewhat close if we're both writing about it.
In one work situation that I had that started going south, I think some of the best advice that I got from a friend was write yourself an email about what happened. Because I would call people and be like, oh my gosh, you won't believe what happened. You know, or I would call them like in tears going, oh, you won't believe what happened. And she was like, and she told me, just start writing yourself an email. And the email has it does a couple of things. It's you recording what happened and how you feel about it, but it also has a time date stamp on it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was, if you like can't get to an email, like a voice note on your phone, sending a text to yourself even, because like, for that very reason that it records it that moment in time. But yeah, or keep in a notebook, whatever your modality that works for you. Yeah, I take notes in every meeting. I'm taking notes now. Like,
wow.
Yeah,
you're
like
taking notes on me?
Yeah,
girl.
I mean, really taking notes on me, right?
Okay.
But yes, I'm a fan of over documentation, and I probably take it further than needed. But
okay, next
I don't see how it can hurt.
Yeah. I agree with you. Next question. Gaslighting. How does one handle gaslighting in a work situation?
It's so hard.
Oh, you want me to skip that go to the next hard question?
No. We can. I can do hard.
It's tiring. I know.
Yeah, it's exhausting, and I think naming that is part of it. I think.
How do we name it? How do we know that we're being gaslit?
I think one again, it's know Socrates, like know thyself. But I think it's really about like having I call them like my board of directors, like your inner circle, whether they're people you like work with or they're people in your life, like someone who will tell you the truth, who will listen, who will hold space for you. Like if you as because sometimes like the first like gaslighting is successful is um when it evokes that like self-doubt. And so
You mean like when it makes you feel like you're crazy?
yes. And so I think that in order to be like, wait, am I crazy? I'm not crazy. Like you have to convene your board of directors
Mhm.
and be like, this is what's happening, and this is what I've been told, and like, am I nuts? And they'll either be like, yeah, girl, like calm down. Like you don't
Yeah.
have evidence of ABC. Like, so it's not necessarily about like your confidant, because sometimes like those boundaries can get blurred and they tell you what you want to hear. Like you want to be able to like convene your trusted advisors who are always going to tell you the truth.
Mhm.
And so I think that's the first thing, because they can confirm like, yeah, dude, you're being gaslit, or consider this or consider that, or they offer solutions in a different way.
Mhm.
But let's assume that you're like, ooh, yes, that is, you're being abused. Like, I think once you've like figured that out, you have a,
Thank you, Christine.
yes, I love a good resource. You have an opportunity to make a series of decisions. If you're being gaslit by a peer, then yeah, and your supervisor is someone that you think is gonna like, you can trust them and like listen, then take it to your supervisor. Or if your supervisor is not the person that can handle that, someone on their level, like work the hierarchy. And sometimes that may be HR. I know that some HR offices are great and some are out here doing harm. And so your own organization, but I think working the hierarchy in that regard. If it's your supervisor gaslighting you, that's a little bit tricky, right? Like because there's power, they have the power to fire you. Like it's power laden. And so I think my advice would remain the same and like work the hierarchy, but there's a higher level of strategy that has to go into. So it may be your boss's boss if you have that relationship with them.
And if that boss's boss is willing to hear anything and be involved.
Sure. So it's really about like doing character checks almost.
Yeah.
On the people that you're like, okay, this is what I need help for. And if the person internally doesn't automatically come to mind, again, I think that's when you go back to your board of directors and you're like, I don't have anybody I can talk to about this. What do you suggest? Because again, they'll tell you the truth and they're like, man, this is one you're gonna have to take to HR. I know Patty's raggedy, but this is her job. And so like, and again, document it, this, that, and the other thing. Or be like, oh, have you thought about, oh, what you mentioned, that one person at this one thing. Do you stay in contact with them? Like your board of directors will really be able to advise you if like those natural inclinations of, oh, I need to talk to my boss about this, or oh, I need to talk to, Jim over here, or like if the person doesn't actually come to mind, your trusted advisors will have good advice for you too.
One thing, looking back on some of my past work experiences, one tell that I saw consistently for my supervisor when he was gaslighting me is like he would like willingly write email back and forth, and then when I low-key called him out on something that he said and he wanted to change my perception of it, he would not email me back. He would come to my office and talk to me and kind of do that, oh, I can't believe you thought that I meant, and it's like, I read the email, that's what you said. Yeah. But they would try to convince me that like, that's not, I know what you think you read, but that's not what I meant. And they would never put it in writing because then I would have something to compare it to.
Sure.
I want to take something that you've said and kind of switch us a little bit. You mentioned HR. I would like to talk about HR, the difference between HR and ombudspersons,
sure,
and what they're supposed to do. And I'm going to ask you to be a little less loquacious because I'm looking at the time and Christine's eventually going to cut us off.
Okay, cogent, I can do it. In the most basic terms, HR is in place to protect the interests of the organization, and the ombuds is in place as a neutral party to help to hold space for whoever is in front of them. So like on an individual or relationship based level. And so again, some HR offices are great and can do both. Like they recognize that their people are their greatest assets. We protect our people, therefore we protect the interests of the organization. In an unhealthier way, it's like, people are disposable. We can always get new people. It's about money. And so they do it in that way. I think that it is my personal preference. And I say this not as a human resources professional. I've always been on the ombud side of things. So that's just more in line with my work. I think that every organization should have both. Because I think when you get a really great HR team that really is people-centered, you're inevitably going to come up against that circumstance where you're going to have to choose between this one instance and the company. Usually it's litigious, and you're always going to side with the company because you need a job. Yeah. And so it can work. But I think it's better. I think organizations, just from a liability standpoint, but also in terms of like how people-centered you are, I think that those two entities need to be separate. They can work in Congress, but
what if
very clear objectives that are different?
What if the ombuds person is your supervisor?
Red flag. I do ombuds work. I've done ombuds work, and I think it's a bad idea. You cannot be objective. You cannot carry out the role of the ombuds in like the spirit and the letter of that office if you have supervisees. I just think it's a conflict of interest.
Why? Can you explain a little bit more?
So when I think about myself as an ombuds, like it really is about maintaining neutrality, like being objective, being able to hold space for anything and everything that comes in my office, whether I agree with it or not. As a supervisor, I have a responsibility to let you know when you're wrong, right? Because ultimately, like your work is a reflection of my work. And there's an accountability measure. And I have to make some decisions as your supervisor. Like there are things in a supervisory role that contradict what I think an ombuds is there to do. And so, yeah, I just think that there are things that are antithetical. And so I personally, again, opinions, belly buttons, I said it. But I think that those two things should not intermingle. Okay. It just opens you up for mess.
Okay. When and how do you leave? Again, Kleina.
When do you leave? When you've reached that threshold. Like again, you know how much crap you're willing to put up with, and you know when that straw hits and your camel's back is done. And so I think it's determining what your threshold is. So, because they're very different. So once you decide to leave, how you leave, I think is very important. You have to consider, your reputation in the field. You have to consider the person who's going to be in this role after you, your peers. Like there are just a lot of different things to think about. And if you're in scorch the earth mode and you're like, I don't know.
Who told you what I'm like?
Right?
Somebody told on me.
Right. Like if you're like new phone, who this, like be like, to whom it may concern, I effective immediately. May God have mercy on your soul, Leslie. Like, I mean, but you have to weigh out those options. Like, clearly you can never go back there, but also like for the person that comes after you, like as people are interviewing, that may not be the worst thing when they ask like, okay, why did the person who was in this role before me leave? And that puts some pressure on your employer to be like, well, they threw up the deuces, like, oh, right. And so there is utility and power in just being like, you know what, I'm done, and packing your stuff and going. And there's the more delicate way of break, like, how do you break the news to your team? Do you tell your boss first? Do you give them a lot of lead time? Like, those are all contextual things that you have to take into account. But what I will say in all of that is that there's only one you, and you got to do what's best for you.
Okay.
Yeah, I
All
won't
right.
pontificate on that.
All right. Let me see if I can sneak another one in there before we need to go to Q&As. How do you talk about leaving in an interview or conference setting? Like you're leaving a bad job with a bad boss and trying to go work someplace else where hopefully they're not worse than where you're at. How do you talk about leaving?
Sure. I tend to diffuse a lot of situations with humor. And so I'm always like, listen, the best time to look for a job is when you've got a job, right? Because it depends on the context a little bit too. Like if you're having a conversation with somebody at a conference and they're like, hey, how are things going over at Grinnell? That's where I am. And you're just like, well, and again, like oftentimes, like I would use humor of like, oh, why are you asking? You hiring? Like, and it depends on the relationship you have with that person. But like, I think in that moment, like, especially if you're in a public setting, I think it is like, is this a public conversation or is this a private conversation? And so if it's a public conversation, and again, you're in sort of like scorched the earth mode, be like, it's not great. But again, the best time to look for a job is when I have one, and I have one. But
so what you know?
Yeah, what do you know? What you about? Who should I talk to? Like, and if that's where you are and that feels comfortable and the right move for you, do it. If you're like, ooh, this person is connected to too many people that I'm not ready to share my news with yet, just be like, you know what? Like, we're out here doing what we do. Like, give the vague non-answer. But then just like, we're out here, things are thinking, like
things are thinking.
Yeah, things are thinking, like we're continuing, to do the best that we can. But I'd love to follow up with you after. Can we find a time to talk? And then you can have the private conversation. And so, yeah, because you're not being dishonest, like things are singing. They just may be singing in the third circle of hell, like, and you want out. But yeah, it's just, I think in that moment, particularly like when you're in public, is this a public conversation or a private conversation? And then where are you in your decision making? And how do you feel about that decision? Again, it's a lot of like cosmotree question asking, but a lot about self-reflection.
Okay. I'm going to pause us right here. We've got one more question, but I want to find out from Christine what questions we have that have come in.
Sure.
She said 9-minute warning.
Yes.
Christine, what questions? Should I go to the Q&A?
Yes.
Okay. I think this is going back to bystander. Should we check in with the person if the behavior is so egregious that it should matter if it offends most? For example, open harassment.
Oh, sure. I think it can be a both and. I think that you can report or do, like, whether it's ethics point or, anonymous, or like doing whatever you need to do in order to report like harassment happening, like follow those protocols. Your organization has those in place for a reason, whether they're effective or not, notwithstanding, like you as a good citizen, do your due diligence, go through the process. And I think checking in with whomever has been harmed is always a good, it's rarely ever a mistake to be like, hey, you okay? Like, I saw that this happened. And if they're like, yeah, I'm fine, like nothing's going on, then okay, you've done your due diligence and you can be fine. But again, if it's something that you're like, oh, this is clearly not okay, like follow whatever protocols are in place in your organization, because yeah, if anything, you're going to be deemed overly cautious and maybe a bit nosy. Those are two things I can live with if there's harm happening.
Okay. Yeah. Someone commented that they thanked you for denying that quiet quitting is actually a thing.
Yeah.
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 And then also commented that they keep a handwritten work-only journal. Everything goes into it with ISO 8601 dates. The biggest entries get emailed. And then another question, is scorched earth ever the right move? I'm gonna answer before you answer.
Okay.
I think I would rephrase that as is scorched earth a good political move. And politically, no, but did I feel good after I like turned off my blowtorch? Yep. I felt real good. I printed out all my emails. I took them to the person that I knew in HR. Anybody who asked me why I was leaving, if we were having a one-on-one conversation, I let them know. I also made it known that the person who probably would be interviewing for the position after me, if they asked me about why it was that I was leaving, because in FCIL, we talked to each other, I was going to be honest. And of course, they never hired another FCIL librarian, so I didn't have to talk about it. So good on them. But yeah, so politically, probably not the best, but I survived and I felt better after telling everybody what a shit show that place was. Oops, I cussed.
Yeah, I will say, is scorched earth ever the move? Yeah, if it's the right move for you. Like, again, you were the only thing that we are an expert in is our own lives. And so if that's what you need to do, like if you just need to pivot and you're like, I don't want to be a dog walker anymore, like screw the canines, like, and like I'll never walk a dog again, like, right, like that's absolutely for whatever your situation is. I actually, Trezlen, I'm going to disagree with you. I actually think sometimes scorched earth is a great political move.
Okay.
Because especially if it's one thing if somebody raggedy is like, okay, bye, like ain't nobody gonna notice. But if somebody brilliant who brings a lot to the table, who, has well respected that this, that, and the other thing just disappears out of nowhere, you're gonna ask questions because the quality of who you are and the work you bring to the table will speak much, much louder than one moment in time when you quit your job. And so it shines the spotlight on toxicity in a way that going through traditional channels may not achieve. But again, you have to be excellent. I've scorched earth a place and left and was like, that raised some eyebrows. Some transitions were made. Some folks were let go, and this, that, and the other thing. And I was recruited to come back.
All right.
So it's not, but that's also, I'm one person, I'm an N of one, right? So don't commit that to memory. But
okay, I want to rebut the answer that I gave because I know this profession. So like I talked about like scorching a place that I left. I don't think I scorched it well enough, but I do understand that for this profession that we're in, we have to be careful. And so, because it's such a small profession, everybody knows everybody. And probably too, plenty of people know the bad actors that you're talking about as bad actors, or they like to pretend that they don't know that. And I would, my suggestion would be like, go to your board of trustees or your board of directors, like Leslie said, and talk to them about the situation and figure out what answer you're going to give for why it is that you're leaving when you're interviewing, and just kind of like, press your lips and give the answer. And, and if they press you, you figure out like, are you going to repeat the same answer that you've just given? Or are you going to open up? But just, I know that in the profession that we're in, we have to be careful because, some people get a little snippy about like you being truthful when they know it's the truth too.
Yeah. Truth hurts.
Yeah. We've got one more question that came in. Let's see if we can answer it before our time is up. When you're encouraged to work collaboratively with another team at your organization that has a toxic dynamic, what can you do to keep that dynamic from invading your own team?
Sounds like a boundaries conversation or an expectation, not boundaries. Forget I said boundaries, an expectations conversation. Because collaborative, it's about 50-50. And if that feels askew,
Mhm.
you are opening yourself up for all kinds of different things, resentment, poor work,
Mhm.
overwork, all that sort of thing. So if you're feeling like it is unequal, you got to name it so you can navigate it.
Mhm.
And either the other party will be like, oh, either they had no idea, they're just like in their own mode and they're like, oh snap, I'm sorry, like let me reevaluate. They'll get defensive, and then again, they've proven you right, and you can talk to their supervisor, talk about a redistribution of labor, whatever. But you have to name the thing to navigate the thing. And so if your expectations are misaligned, have a conversation to bring them back in alignment, or bring somebody in to realign them for you, like a supervisor or an ombuds or whatever.
Yeah, and I would say in a situation like that too, you might want to talk about like, ground rules, setting
Yeah,
up ground rules.
sure.
We're not going to talk to each other this way. This is, okay, you said you're going to do this. This is when you're going to have that to us. Here's how it's expected to look. Here's how we're going to talk to each other, like things like that, that seem like they should be like basic common knowledge, but doesn't necessarily transport over.
Right. Yeah. And
Yeah,
visualize it, document it, like get
yeah,
a Gantt chart out and be like, my team is responsible for 15 of the 18 things. Like, make that make sense.
yeah,
Or again, this is where documenting things is helpful. Like, because again, people can gaslight you. They're like, oh, you just,
yeah.
you're not that
Right.
busy and da 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 da. Like, well, bring the receipts.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I've got one last, wait, we just get another question in. Okay. We got a thank you from the person who gave that question. So let's see if in the 30 seconds we have left, we can answer this last question.
Okay.
What's something you wish you'd known early in your career that would make it easier to support the work that you do now?
It's okay to quit the job. I've stayed in jobs early in my career, for fear of being seen as like a flight risk. Or I'm a millennial, so like, oh, fitting that stereotype, and was miserable way longer than I needed to be. And so yeah, if I could go back and tell Leslie from 2010 or whatever, girl, quit that job, you'll be fine, I absolutely would. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, because the organization didn't care. Like, that's capitalism, right? Like,
Yeah.
we'll replace you. And so choosing me, 100%.
Yeah. The thing that I would say to answer that is that if you know that your mental health is fine, when you're being gaslit, you're not crazy. That if you're sensing that you're being gaslit or that something's not right, then something's not right. Don't just automatically assume
Yes.
that it's a you problem. I mean, it could be a you problem. So you check in with your people and you check in with yourself.
Sure.
But if you've determined that it's not a you problem, that it's a them problem, stick to that and don't let somebody else convince you that you are crazy when you know you're not. I mean,
Absolutely.
you probably have some issues, but this might not be it.
Yeah.
So
100%. Yeah.
okay.
Sure.
All right. Christine, those are all the questions. Anything else?
Thank you both so much.
Yay.
I'm just going to give a round of applause and
Thank you.
assume that everyone else is also giving a round of applause.
Yeah, sorry, we
Guys.
went over a minute. Pardon us.
Oh, no, it's okay. We started a little late, so
Okay.
right on
Woohoo!
time.
right.
But thank you, Leslie. Thank you, Trezlen. I thought that this was just a really insightful, funny, engaging conversation. And so I learned so much, and I think everyone else did as well. So thank you both so much for your time. Thank you everyone who attended. It's so nice to
Yeah.
see all your names, and for all of your very good questions as well. So thank you everyone, and I hope that you all have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you all for coming. We couldn't have had a conversation without you.
Yes, thank you so much.
All right. Peace.
Bye.